So Left Behind is a prequel to The Last of Us. And it's like going in, right away I was like, I kind of have some idea of where this is going to go because we know Ellie's story already. So what are like the storytelling hurdles you have to overcome when people who've played it have this inkling of where it's headed?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's something that we challenged ourselves when we first started working on Left Behind, which is, what is this telling me that I didn't already know before? Like, you know, Ellie's speech at the end, you kind of know Ellie's fate and Riley's fate coming out of this thing. So what is it about the journey, the bond, the relationship of these two characters that kind of help define both of them? And you get to see them go through an arc. Like when you meet Ellie in Left Behind, she's a pretty different person than who she is at the beginning of the main campaign. And likewise, you know, the thing that was intriguing us about the story is for Joel, you get to see the event that kind of broke him, shaped who he was when you start the main campaign. With Ellie, you don't get to see that. She's already on that journey. She's already been bitten. So it was really interesting for us to explore what is it like to live in this quarantine zone in this post-pandemic world where it's kind of a horrible existence and yet you still have kids and trying to be kids.
Yeah, so towards the end of this, they kiss. And I already know this is going to be like the headline story of like every website because we have to talk about this. There's a teenage girl kissing another teenage girl. Like, do you see this as controversial? Are you fearing any kind of backlash from this?
Fearing backlash?
Yes.
No, there's no fear at all.
I guess we just know, we know there's going to be some of that. And that's one of the things, you know, when we were working at, we really challenged ourselves to say, is this essential to the story?
Are we doing it for the right reason?
Because you could tell the same story and just cut that moment out. And actually we tried that. We tried cutting it out. And it just felt like it wasn't as strong. It wasn't, I didn't get to know these characters on the same level. So for us, it was imperative to tell this story. As far as should it be controversial? I don't think it should be. Like if Riley was a boy, I don't think we'd be talking about it really.
No, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about this is that you still play through most of it, but a lot of the playing is just exploration, as opposed to the combat-centric The Last of Us. Was that like, because that's a tough step, because we already have like Gone Home isn't a game. Like we already have people talking about like games that don't have a lot of combat as not being real games. Do you see yourself moving more in that direction and more comfortable with that direction of you can just exist in a world and it's still totally interesting and fun and has all the other emotions you'd want?
Yeah, that's the challenge with that for us, again, because we're making an action game, is how do you build mechanics and how do you not just make everything a one-off? You know, with The Last of Us, we really challenge ourselves to go with fewer combats than we've done in the past. We went past our comfort zone with that. And we felt because of that, there was more tension in those situations. And with the DLC, we said, okay, let's try to go even further. Let's see if we could do fewer combat, but we still refined the combat. We still added like the three-way kind of factions where you can have infected fighting other humans, and you can kind of choose whether you want to skirt around them or set them off against each other. So there was more depth, more options in the combat. While at the same time, because there were fewer set pieces, hopefully there's more tension to those situations.
So you mentioned, like when you're making The Last of Us, you never established what Ellie's terrible past was. But when you wrote The Last of Us, did you have this whole kind of scenario in mind already? Like the rough sketch, even if it wasn't in the game?
Yeah, I mean, we knew like the rough kind of main beats of like, they were together at the mall, they got bitten. You know, she talks about Riley dying and she didn't, and she was struggling with that. At the same time, I was writing with Faith Erin Hicks, The Last of Us American Dreams, a graphic novel that, you know, is canon. So then when it was time to do the Left Behind story, it seemed like a good fit where it could kind of continue what started with the graphic novel and kind of fill in that gap, and you get to see this moment that really changed Ellie forever.
Yeah, I clearly really like the storytelling because you see, as you just said, like Riley assumes, she almost felt like a big sister the way that she nudged her, as opposed to like Joel more like ordered her a little more, whereas Riley was clearly in charge but didn't feel like she was forcing her. And I did think that was really interesting how we do see her growth to just be this independent young woman in those scenes where she can actually choose for herself. I thought she was a very interesting character, if you haven't noticed already.
Yeah. We like her
Great.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever worry that, like, because the audience for this is so much male-dominated with the AAA stuff, do you ever worry that having a character
Turns
like
out that's
Ellie-
actually not very true.
is that actually, what is your experience? What is, like, the breakdown for, like,
I think it's
The Last of Us?
60-40. 60-40. Males are, there's a 60% male audience, but I believe it's 40% female.
Okay. So I mean, what kind of responses are you getting from, like, having Ellie being so, I mean, because she was, I mean, it was her and the woman Jodie from Beyond Two Souls I thought were the strongest characters all year, and they just happened to be women also. So what kind of reactions are you getting that you're exploring this after, it was Nathan Drake and it was Jack and it was all male characters before that?
I think the reception's been great, and I mean, we never set out to really make a statement so much as like maybe play with tropes and make a super capable character, that it's almost like, the understanding is like, the generalizations, right, are like, oh, it's gonna be an escort mission, and we went out of our way to make her the most capable and independent and feisty, person that she could be, which then it's the contrast with Joel's, he's resistant and reluctant to let somebody in, and so you needed that contrast. You needed somebody like kind of banging on the door, emotionally, physically, and capably, and to also win over not only Joel, but the players. We wanted to make sure that players felt like, Ellie's awesome. Like, oh, she just threw a brick in an opportune time to help me, and she's saying jokes that I think are, like, there's every single turn we tried to give her moments and make her stand out on her own.
Yeah, and like Bruce is saying, we really like playing with convention. So it's like you have the hardened, gritty guy that ends up having all these emotional breakdowns, kind of like going against that character. And then
As
you
well as
have
being saved.
Yeah,
Like,
and
how
then-
many times was he actually saved by Ellie?
Sure. And then you have like the person that you think you're going to escort, and like even in the main campaign, throughout Winter, it looks like Joel is going in and he's going to be the one that saves Ellie in the last second, and Ellie saves herself. She actually doesn't need him. So that was kind of like, that was a large part of it. And we saw that time and again when we were just at PAX recently. We had to do a silly signing where we're signing some posters or something. But we would ask like all the fans, we'd try to like, what was your favorite part? And I would say 9 out of 10 people said Winter when you play as Ellie.
I would vote for Winter also.
So, hopefully with Left Behind that continues and they really enjoy a character like this, because we find it intriguing.
It's not an agenda, but by all means, like, we're happy that people resonate with the character, and we're happy that it does make a statement. I mean, there's no reason why this should be like, it's the same thing with, sexual identities, etc. It's like, who cares? A good character is a good character,
Yeah.
and that's what we're after here. So.
Okay. The mood of the game is really interesting to me because it's really lighthearted, which sounds strange because it's the zombie apocalypse. But like, you're in a Halloween store, you Riley and Ellie, and they're laughing, and it's actually genuinely funny too, and you're kind of laughing along with them. But like in the back of my mind was fear all the time, because like fear of the inevitable and fear of where they're living, and what kind of world they're living in. Was that something you were trying to inject? Was that feeling the whole time, or are you trying to have like just levity in the Last of Us universe?
I think it's interesting that just the nature of the world brings that tension. Just inherently, I think we all kind of have that, like, what's around the next corner sort of feeling, and that just seeing, an abandoned mall where people are supposed to be like flooded through there and shopping and happy. You're supposed to hear that noise, and then it's, you hear birds twittering off in trees, and there's that kind of awkward silence inside of the mall.
And you're trying to put
It's
yourself,
off-putting.
Yeah, and you're trying to put yourself in the mind of like, what would it be like to live in this situation regularly, so that you could get used to it. And then you see Riley plays off of that as well. She knows she could get a rise out of Ellie by scaring her. And again, in that scenario, in that setting, how can you find a moment of fun, a moment of levity?
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely one of the things, even though the tension's already kind of built in with the world, it was our direct intention to say, okay, let's have fun. Let's be a couple teenagers like hanging out, in a mall, turning power on and playing with stuff.
It's
know,
like
that's awesome.
the thing that teenagers would do in our world, what's the metaphor for that in this world?